Welcome to another video. In this video, we're going to talk about how to properly read Klaviyo e-commerce email marketing metrics. Let's talk about metrics, how to read them, what they mean, and how to leverage them. And if you stick around to the end, I'm going to tell you why the majority of these metrics are useless and a waste of your time for micro analyzing. Crazy, I know. It's mind-blowing. Anyways, this isn't some gimmick either. In fact, I rarely pay attention to over 90% of these metrics when working with clients, and all my clients have been on a consistent uptrend. Essentially, business has never been better for them across the board. But before I explain that earth shattering concept, we need to first understand the fundamentals. And with that said, let's jump in. So, what are the metrics? Well, I've listed them here in the order that you should read them. It's beneficial you follow this order starting out because it'll serve as a useful tool when you want to conduct an analysis at different levels within your email marketing channel. So, first few are open rate, click-through rate, and revenue. Now, this is the core of what you should be focusing on at an email level. Some additional metrics that you can focus on at an email level are placed order rate, which you'll get through Shopify, the Shopify integration or whatever e-commerce integration, the delivery rate, bounce rate, unsubscribe rate, and spam complaint rate. So what I've listed above is to understand what's going on at an email level. There are other metrics in general throughout the email marketing channel that you want to pay attention to as well, such as what's going on with the opt-in forms, the list growth, revenue per recipient, etc. But for the sake of this video, I'm only going to focus on what I've listed above. So let's dive into these metrics. What do they mean, and how do we leverage them for data-driven decisions? I want to keep it super simple and just go one by one, okay? Open rate. This is a good signal for you to let you know that your subject line is not performing. Okay, you certainly want to ensure your deliverability is on point. Otherwise, that could be another issue. Another thing to consider is your segmentation. Are you properly segmenting your audiences so your subject line actually lands with them and doesn't fall flat? Something you want to ask yourself. So those are all, different things that could be affecting your open rate. And there's actually another thing that could affect your open rate, but we'll touch on that later. Or actually, no, I just did. My bad. But anyways, the click-through rate. This often has to do with your call to action. Okay, are you being clear with the action they must take? Believe it or not, we need to properly guide the reader to take the action we want them to take. Now, I say all the time that our audiences, our customers, they are not stupid by any means. They are actually more sophisticated than ever within the online shopping space. But we still need to do our job. It is our responsibility to make it super simple for them to take action. So you want to ensure that you're very clear with the instructions you give them with your CTA. A low CTR could also be a signal to poor messaging and or a poor offer. Again, maybe you have a great offer, but you're not sending it to the right people. So get your segmentation on point as well. It's very important. Next is revenue. This is by far the most important metric you should be reviewing. At the end of the day, we're running online stores and the purpose is to make sales. Okay? So if you're not making money with your emails and you're legitimately trying to, then you need to look at the email as a whole from all perspectives, the copy, offer, audiences, etc. You literally have to take a holistic approach and just look at it from all different angles. Okay? Because if you're legitimately trying and you're still not generating any sort of sales, there's bigger issues at hand. Now, place order rate. This is a metric that simply tells you the number of people from all the recipients of an email who placed an order. This can be beneficial from a 30,000 foot view to leverage for strategy in general. No need to go crazy with this metric. Additionally, it can fuel action for optimizing your offer or for you to understand what's performing as well from a positioning perspective. Okay. Delivery rate. It's very simple. It tells you the percentage of people you sent an email to that the email was actually delivered to them. This can signal to you that you may need to do some potential list cleaning, similar with the bounce rate. You may want to consider some list cleaning as well, and or check on your email health slash deliverability. Now, spam complaint rate. This is something you certainly want at 0.00% always. This is what I've achieved with my clients. In the beginning, if you're reactivating a list, it's most likely going to be higher, okay? That's understandable. So just take that into consideration. Don't freak out if you're reactivating a list or an audience that you haven't really emailed and the spam complaint rate goes up. But if you are consistently having people report you as spam, then you want to ensure that you have the unsubscribe link easily accessible. If you do not have the unsubscribed link easily accessible, the only other option is to report you spam. And another thing that could lead to spam complaint rates is that, or an increase in spam complaints, is that you have improper segmentation or you have ugly or irritating glorified billboards. And if you don't know what a glorified billboard is, then go watch my full Klaviyo guide. I believe I touch on it in there. But it could also be that they're just simply not loading in your emails. And there's a bunch of different things that can contribute to it as well. But for the most part, it's typically people that are trying to be sneaky with their unsubscribe link. That's what I've noticed with the brands I've worked with. They try to hide it or they make it really small. They try to make it the same color or just like a very difficult shade of a color to even like see it. But just make it easily accessible. Okay. Spam complaints do more harm to your deliverability than unsubscribes. And on that note, the unsubscribe rate, we actually want this. Okay, this is good. It's simply notifying you of people you don't want inside of your ecosystem. You obviously don't want this to get out of hand. You don't want your unsubscribe rate to just be, a ridiculous number. But you will for the most part, consistently have unsubscribes with every single campaign email you send. And that's normal and that's good because these are people that are essentially raising their hand and saying, I don't want to be a customer or I don't like your brand. I like don't email me anymore. I don't want to know what's going on. That's good because we don't want those people on our list. Okay. Eventually, over time, what's going to happen is you're naturally going to prime your list with people who love and trust your brand and genuinely want to be a part of it. And that is precisely what we want because with email marketing, we want to have the focus of building authentic relationships with our customers. And we only want to do so with people that genuinely want to be in that sort of relationship. Now, before we dive into next level metric analysis, which is going to be very, very eye opening, if you like the video so far, give it a thumbs up, please. I'd greatly appreciate it. And subscribe so you can stay up to date with every video that I'm creating for you, for your benefit, really. So let's dive in to next level metric analysis. So we've gone over all the metrics at an email level, and it's worth taking the time to understand how to leverage them. It really is. But once you fully comprehend each metric and how to leverage them and how they can fuel your data-driven decisions, then that's when you can actually level up as a marketer. Because to be frank with you, 90%, over 90% of these metrics, they don't mean shit. They really don't. Especially if you do, as I say in pretty much every single video I've ever created so far, which is to focus on building authentic relationships with your customers. When you do this, you immediately make the majority of these metrics we've gone over completely irrelevant. Okay? The only metric you really need to pay attention to on a consistent basis is the revenue metric, for obvious reasons. And even then, it's not so often if you're focused on serving your audience to the highest degree of excellence. Everything else is secondary. And you can check up on the secondary metrics every so often, but you certainly do not need to microanalyze every metric in every email. It's just going to drive you crazy and it's going to waste your time. Seriously. Now, there is a time and place to leverage those metrics consistently, kind of. It's generally at a much higher level with brands that are trying to eke out every, optimized result possible. But even then, it's optional depending on how you're building your brand and who you're serving. And even then, it could be detrimental. So I wouldn't get too caught up with this. You do need to understand the fundamentals. You do need to understand what each metric means. But for example, you may not know this, but open rates, they're not super accurate. Okay? It's actually very difficult for an email service provider to even calculate an open rate super precisely. Like, they're not that accurate. So why would you go crazy analyzing that metric? Here's the thing: when you focus on building authentic relationships with your customers, you should be doing your very best in every regard to email, okay? Your deliverability should always be on point. Your copy should be on point. Your offers should be on point. Your segmentation should be on point. And if you do everything right, you don't really even need to look at the metrics. And your open rates, when you're serving people to the highest degree, you're going to increase your frequency, because the more touch points you have with someone, the better relationship you're able to build with them. So when you're doing that through email, as you increase your frequency, you'll notice that people genuinely like to read your emails. They genuinely care about your emails. And you don't really have to care for the open rate, because if sales are going up, which at the end of the day, that's what matters as an e-commerce brand owner or as an e-commerce marketer, then you're fine. If your list is still growing, it's getting primed with customers that legitimately want to be a part of your ecosystem, and you're consistently building that relationship, fostering that relationship with them, and sales are rolling in and it's always on an uptrend, you're fine, right? So why drive yourself crazy trying to microanalyze every single metric on every single email just to maybe get a 0.001% increase? Again, that makes sense at a very, very high level. And that's if that's how you want to leverage things. But for the most part, if you're at a 7-figure run rate or a multiple 7-figure run rate, you don't really need to do that. And again, it depends on how you're kind of approaching things, but for the most part, whether you're a brand owner or a service provider, you don't necessarily need to drive yourself crazy with all these metrics. And that's how you're going to level up as a marketer, because when you take this approach that I've been harping on in every single video, that is what makes the difference in elevating a brand for longevity, scale, impact, and profit. That's it for this one, and I'll see you in the next video.